Welcome everyone to the Retro Chat episode number 7. Andy Evans here, joined as always by my guest at this time. If you do a Masters show, how could you not do it without the man with the Chronicles? It's Chris Vint from Vinto's Vault. How you doing, my friend?
Hello. Yes, thank you so much for inviting me back to talk about my favorite topic, which is Masters of the Universe. And straight off the bat, I need to say that thank you very much for hosting Masters Universe Chronicles on your podcast feed. And I'm delighted to say that we now have the full access to all the He-Man Masters Universe Chronicles episodes, including the commentaries with James Eatock. So I thought, just whenever you said Chronicles, I thought I would make that announcement that you will be the first show since Chronicles to have the full rundown of from episode 2, because I don't have episode 1 and I don't like episode 1 at all because it's just horrible to listen to. So yeah, from episode 2 all the way up to the 2nd year anniversary that had Songster from the He-Man and Master Universe Power Tour. I had like a 20-minute phone conversation with him.
Amazing. And we're already, airing some of the Chronicles now. We've done the most recent one was the commentary on the classic 87 movie featuring Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella. Chris, that is fantastic news and great that we're going to be re-releasing them right here on Retro Chat. I always called it Retro Shock then. I've been doing that.
Yeah, well, it's because, we had Retro Shock, obviously, and then Retro Chat. And yes, I think the next episode that'll air will be the Dean Stefan one, which goes nicely with the 2002 show as well. And unfortunately, sadly, no longer with us. He was great in recording a special 2-year anniversary message for me, which was at the start of that show. So once we reach, like a certain milestone, maybe we'll release that. And it just sadly missed. And I actually was going through my Facebook Messenger with some of the interaction that him and I had, and just some of the things he said were quite hilarious. It was just a great interview to have, and just one that I wasn't expecting a lot from. And at the edge of it, I was just like this, just listening intently to things he was saying about season 3 and the stuff that they never got to do, sadly.
Well, here's a bit of trivia for you. I was actually in talks to bring Dean on to another podcast. And then unfortunately he passed away. And so I think it was a conversation. We were halfway through and we were pretty much there. And we were just about to confirm dates. We had the agreement, he was willing to come on. It was going to be, I can't remember what the podcast was now, but it was going to be a different type of interview for the show. Mm-hmm. And he unfortunately passed away. So we didn't actually ever get around to doing it. So I'm very envious of you, my friend, because you've interviewed some of the biggest names within the legend, the mythos of Masters, really. And I get to do it in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes, you do. You do, with a certain someone. But yeah, I've just been very fortunate that some people have been very instrumental in letting me obtain the interviews and stuff. And then I did have, like yourself, Gary Hartle, who is the director of the show we're going to talk about, lined up. And then we just couldn't get dates to correspond, and it kind of just fell away from there. So unfortunately, that never happened with him, but I've just been very fortunate with a lot of people that I would talk to, especially the likes of Roger Sweet, who was my most requested interview once Chronicles Podbean had messed that up, and I didn't have all the shows up there, and then luckily I was able to retrieve them. And the way I had to do it was on my old laptop, and because the charging wouldn't work, and then having to put on things underneath it, and then just sitting there ever so slightly with the pen drive, just slightly putting in to make sure that I didn't move, and then it would just disrupt it all. So yeah, it's all on my new computer, and what we'll do is we'll discuss off air how I'll send it across to you, or put it in Dropbox and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm just very because, from like 2009, whenever you think about it, it was a lot of work went into it, and it was I think it annoyed me more once it'd been on your show the first time. And I was like, if I had all those, and now I do. So yes, some of them are just like my favorite things that I've done, the likes of like Dean Stefan and Larry DiTilio's interviews and Roger Sweet's, which required the most editing, but it was certainly nice to talk to that gentleman.
I cannot wait to start putting the whole series up on Retro Chat. Really can't. I mean, let's give you a little bit of background in terms of download figures. One of the things that I don't really concern myself with download figures. If people are downloading it and they're listening to it, then that's great. That's one of the things that makes our job, that what we do, worthwhile. But what I can tell you, Chris, is that the Chronicles are one of the most highest rated download shows that we have on the feed.
Well, that's you know, it goes well then that, you know, that after all this time there's still some demand for it, and with that I think we've done it at the right time. Just with the new show coming out, there's more hype around the He-Man property, and people are wanting to maybe revisit the classic show or revisit this revamp show, and then maybe forget about the new adventure show, and then just want to see, want to listen to different things and stuff, you know. So it bodes well for me that, you know, like that people still want to listen to my voice talking about He-Man. So I'm always thrilled whenever people want to listen to stuff that I've done. So thank you for that.
Well, don't discriminate against the new adventures, because we are going to be covering that at some point.
Oof, I might be sick that day.
We've got She-Ra to do yet. Looking forward to that. That's right, fine. Let's She-Ra was fine. Let's cover. I always take it into the gutter. Always take it into the gutter. Mm-hmm. Let's cover a little bit of admin. Now, if you would like to get in contact with me here at Retro Chat, you most certainly can do. All you need to do is head over to socials, which is Facebook and Instagram at Retro Chat Podcast, or you can tweet me at Retro Chat Pod. Now, I kind of teased it earlier on. We put the announcement out the other day that on Friday, July the 23rd, I'm going to be joined by... I think he's credited as a He-Man historian, right? On the Power of Grayskull documentary.
I would say that he's a Filmation historian more than anything else, but that's just me.
So he's a He-Man historian. He's a Filmation historian. He is an author. He is one of the most respected gurus in respect of Filmation and He-Man. James Eatock will be joining us on Friday, July the 23rd. Now, that day is instrumental. And why is that day instrumental, Chris?
Because it's a Friday, and you have to, you know, phone in sick and watch some He-Man Masters Universe Revelation stuff.
Absolutely. Part 1 of Revelations drops on Netflix in the day. And James will be joining us in the evening. And we will be releasing that podcast there and then. So the minute it is completed, it will be uploaded and put out on the podcast feed. So we will get first reactions from James regarding Revelations. I'm hoping he's watched it by that point. So I'll make sure I've watched at least a couple of episodes before we do the interview. So Revelations premieres on July 23rd. James Eatock is joining us on July 23rd. That's going to be that week's bonus episode of Retro Chat. And the invite is out. So I'm hoping that we're going to have a third party join us for that interview as well, to make it a three-way dance, if you want to take the wrestling terminology. And that is Mr. Vint. So if Mr. Vint is available, the invite is out. And Chris, come and join us to do the interview with myself and James and talk all things Masters and Revelations. I think it'll be a cool chat, don't you?
I hope so. And obviously after that, we'll then obviously have access to the interview, the commentaries that I conducted with James Eatock about certain Filmation episodes. So then they will be coming up on the Retro Chat feed as well. So you aren't just done with James Eatock after the 23rd of July by any stretch of the imagination, because I think I have like about 25 commentary episodes all raring to go. So yeah.
Anybody would think we've planned it.
Yeah, you would think so, but it hasn't been. It's just been one of those things where the stars have aligned and the power sword has come out and all things He-Man has happened. And that sounded fine in my head until I said it, and it sounded worse. So,
well, let's not go any further there. Now,
Fine.
Before we crack on with the 200x Reboot series, if you want to get a hold of Chris, if you want to follow Chris on his amazing YouTube channel, Vinto's Vault, or on social media, just head over to Vinto's Vault. Chris is dropping videos pretty much on a weekly basis now, and your most recent video was on the first episode watch, which I love this idea. I think it is such a unique and why has it never been done before idea of taking the first episode from a DVD and basically analyzing it. And your most recent video is on G.I. Joe, isn't it? So yeah, I've watched that. I love G.I. Joe.
I have never watched G.I. Joe. I know of G.I. Joe, and like I said in my video, that I thought G.I. Joe was a person, not like a like a team. So yeah, I just thought, because I've been buying a lot of retro stuff, and retro seems to be where it's at right now, that I thought there's a lot of stuff that I have not watched before. So I thought, why not watch the first episode and give my opinion on it? And I think the one after that will be the top 5 underrated live action TV things, and then my top 5 box sets that I own as well. So that should be coming out after that too.
Some good little commentaries there. I'm looking forward to watching it. So check out Chris on Vinto's Vault on YouTube and on social media. And one other thing from me before we go, the announcement went out yesterday as we're recording this. J. Anthony Franke from the California Dreams, the guy who portrayed the guitar playing, singing, motorcycle riding, leather jacket wearing Jake Summers from California Dreams, is coming to the show. Now, that interview should have taken place this morning. Unfortunately, Jay wasn't very well. That's now been rebooked for next week. So we will be sitting down with J. Anthony Franke, discussing his career, not only on California Dreams, but also in the Deus Ex video game series released on the games console. So we'll be talking about that and what he's doing now and why he's moved to Australia from the USA. So that's going to be a cracking interview. And if you've got any questions for James or for Jay, then email me, studio@retrochat.co.uk, or drop me a message on social media. It's already blowing up for Jay Franke. I've had about 50 questions come in already since the announcement went up last night. So
great.
The popularity for Jay is huge, absolutely huge.
Yeah, that's what you want. You don't want somebody to come on and be like, I have no questions for you. So, this is from Bob down the street. That's the last thing you want.
Welcome to the show and goodbye.
Yeah. We're like, are you well? Yes, I'm fine. Okay, thanks, bye.
See you later. Happy days. Right, let's do it. So we are here this week to talk about the Masters of the Universe, the reboot. Now, the reboot took place in just after the year 2000. 2003 was its first air. 2002, was its first air date. August the 16th. It aired for about 2 years, finishing on January the 10th, 2004. And this one was
my
like
birthday. That makes me sad.
Masters versus the Snakemen.
I killed my birthday. Oh.
He never dies. He-Man doesn't die. No. The third incarnation at that point of the Masters of the Universe franchise, of course, you had the classic Filmation series. You had the wonderful New Adventures from 1989, 1990. Joe, what? You give that such a hard time. I've rewatched it, and I actually really enjoy it.
I will rewatch it. It's just out of the three of them, it's like, the top two, and then it's like here somewhere.
Wait, Revelations will be before New Adventures.
Yeah, it'll be like there somewhere too. Yeah, I hope.
So this one was meant to be a reimagining of the franchise, but it was also keeping the same ethos and the same mythology as the Filmation classic series. So still based on Eternia. You had the old style He-Man, you had the old style look Skeletor compared to what you got in the Japanese sci-fi New Adventures episode. And you've gone on record saying this is actually one of your most favorite incarnations of He-Man. Why is that?
Oh, I think the fact that with this, you had origin stories. We see how Keldor becomes Skeletor with him fighting Randor and then the acid in the face. Then we see like him with Evelyn and Hordak resurrecting him and then saying, I will come back and, it'll be a price, etc., which goes on to one of the later episodes. But I just love the fact that the likes of my favorite characters like Cyclone and Manny Faces, get like, especially Cyclone, who was in 2 episodes of the classic series and not in it that much. Whereas here you establish why he's part of the universe and what he's doing. And then you get like new characters like Decker, Chief Carnivus, Lord Dactus, etc. So I just love the depth of characters and especially towards the end of season one, you know, with the Council of Evil, and then how then it becomes the Last Stand, and then how He-Man's finding all the characters and stuff. But it's just even the start of it, whenever you think, oh, I'm Adam, Prince of Eternity, and then he gets interrupted saying all that. And one of the DVDs, you actually hear Cam Clark saying the whole speech from the classic Filmation show, which was just weird to hear, because obviously you're not used to him saying the whole line of it. But that was really good. But it's just, the animation was really good. I remember watching it, getting it on VCD before like DVD, you know, burners and things like that. And I remember sitting down and watching the first three parts at the beginning and just thoroughly enjoying it and going, I can't wait for more of this, because I think it aired in Toonami over here, which was part of Cartoon Network. But then, you know, you would go to watch it, and then it would either be at a different time, and you're like, oh, their scheduling was horrible. And I think that's one of the things that really affected it, was that. And then the toy sales, which we'll talk about later on. But yeah, it's just, I think after waiting, waiting about 20 years for that, and then we're 20 years after this, we're getting a new show as well. So it's just one of those things that, because it's part of my childhood, like was of yours, it's just nice to reimagine and revisit something that was a big part of your childhood.
I think you're right. You kind of hit the nail on the head there, because it's a kind of, when we were watching the original series, you know, we were kids. I don't think we really appreciated what we were watching at that time. It was a Saturday morning cartoon show in the States. It was, and the same over here. You used to watch it every holiday morning on ITV, followed by, I don't know, Saved by the Bell or something like that. And you watched it and you enjoyed it, but you just took it as a cartoon. And then obviously the merchandise came out and it was a big money spinner. Now, those that have watched it back in the 80s are adults, and potentially some of them have got their own kids, and now they can show it to them, the reimagining story. And it's also the era, if you think about it, Chris, where the reboots really started to become prevalent, because it was around the sort of time that Cartoon Network again rebooted the Thundercats, and you had the similar style of the Japanese anime for the Thundercats cartoon, which again only lasted one season. This did last two. Was that the beginning of the golden age of retro viewing, or was it just a cheap cash-in to get back on the property again?
Oh, I don't think it was that, but I think it was something that Mattel obviously are a business, and they're looking at their properties that they own and thinking, what can we bring out? And then they're thinking, oh, He-Man made loads of money in the 80s. Now, like you say, we're going to have the people who were kids then be adults now. You have the more prevalent collectors, you know, where people will buy stuff and keep unboxed, they keep for years to then sell on or whatever. Or you have the people who'll buy two pack things of it, and then they'll keep one in the box and open one of them. Or you'll have the eBay scalpers who'll buy them and then go like, you know, the way this is $15, how about $150? And you're like, what? No. But I think because, you know, with that, like you say, you had so many like reboots and things, you know, with the likes of Thundercats, with the likes of, you know, so many different Spider-Man cartoons, etc. You know, like there was a time there whenever they must have just looked at their properties and thought, this will make us a lot of money. And sadly, it must have made some money, but I think the way Mattel handled the waves and stuff, like I'll show you here, that some of the toys that came out, you know, like, so here's, you know, you have the likes of He-Man, but you have like 3 different versions of it, but that's not even it, because then you go on to here and you have so many of the different heroes. But if you look, like say Orko, you have 2 different versions of him. So you have one where the ball is red and one where the ball is blue. So, and then there was a lot of like what's called chase variants, where, let's see if I can find one. So like Buzz Off down the bottom here, he has a slightly gold belt and the other one doesn't. So if you were completist, then you weren't going to find these all. I did have quite a lot of them, and this is what funded my WrestleMania trip, which I would do again in a heartbeat, but it would probably be a slower heartbeat. It was like, do I? If I was to go to WrestleMania now or sell them, I would keep them now. But yeah, I remember like seeing them on Woolworths and just thinking, oh, and then having like 5 of them, and only looking at my money and I only have enough for 4. So I think I got He-Man, Skeletor, Man-at-Arms, and Stratos, and Merman went back on the shelf.
I think that was the one thing you talked about, the toys there. I mean, Mattel have openly said that was the reason the original Masters died, was because they just went crazy with the release schedule and the amount of characters they were bringing out and the amount of toys they were bringing out, and people got burnt out doing it.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised, in a way, they went down the same route again with this reboot franchise. You think they would have learned from the mistakes from the original era and maybe done a wave 1 and kept it for a while, got the show established, got the toys out there, then had a long plan for it to develop it into a bigger phase, then just going phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, buzz off with 2 different characters, or Orko, I always called him Orville then, Orko with 2 different outfits, So whether or not that's corporate mentality and corporate greed, I don't know, but you just think that they didn't actually learn from the 80s and from the original franchise.
I think this kind of lacked this kind, as well as they're being quite butch, with the likes of Adam being quite weenie in comparison to the 80s one. There was no novelty factor with these, in my opinion, whereas the 80s one had, you have the likes of, as we've said before, the unique action features, whereas the likes of Mosquito or Pump Blood, Battle on He-Man would have the thing in his chest, whereas you didn't really have this here. And to be honest with you, some of the figures that they designed, because later on, whenever they did the Master Universe versus the Snake Man line, a lot of these figures were re-brought out, but with different color schemes. And then there's one in particular, let's see if I can find it here, because this was just horrific. It was like Snake Hunter He-Man. There he is. So this one here, which is probably one of the worst figures there, if you can see that. Sorry if you're listening on the audio podcast, but if you type in Snake Hunter He-Man into Google, you'll see what I'm talking about. But you have like Snake Crush Skeletor, Triclops Repaint, Serpent Claw Man-at-Arms, Serpent Track Mechanic, Sky Strike Stratos, which was essentially the same as Stratos. Too bad, reverse color. The only newer ones that I liked was the Snake Armor He-Man, and then there was a Beast Man, but it was a merman, and just some of them were just horrific to look at, to be honest. Like a lot of them were just all reprinted, and sadly that just didn't sit well with a lot of collectors who were basically buying the same thing 3 or 4 times over, and if you're completist, you want to have them all. But at the end of the day, that's in my interview with Dean Stephan, he said this was the reason why the show stopped, was because of per toy sales. So if they had got, like there was different ones after this, there was the Staction line, which was basically like kind of like the Randor one that's behind me here. If I shoot to you, don't fall off your statue. So kind of like this here. So
now these are the 4 horsemen, right? They're the ones who have created this.
Yeah, and then they went on to do the classic line in 2009, I want to say. Something around that timeline anyway. But they were very much like the original ones, but reimagined, really. So they were better than these ones anyway. So they were.
One of the things you mentioned there was the Adam character. And one of the criticisms that the original series had was how Prince Adam, even when he transformed into He-Man, was still a big, stocky, muscular guy. He's meant to be the whiny little runt. This series, though, they changed that and they made Adam a lot smaller. They made him out to be a teenager. And then you physically did see the transformation from Adam into He-Man. How did that go over with the crowd? Because for me, that really made it. When you saw the transformation, you really did believe at that point that they're not going to work out that He-Man is actually Prince Adam or anything like that. You can see the cowardly teenager run away and suddenly go, "I have the power," which is part of the magic, isn't it? Of Adam. That's it. Yeah. So what was your take on that?
I really enjoyed it. For the likes of, say, whenever you look back at Superman just really took off glasses and slicked back his hair. Whereas with He-Man, it was kind of the same. Adam just looked very similar to He-Man, hair, the voice was a bit different. So with this, it was a real testament to the voice acting of Cam Clark, who did the voice of both Adam and He-Man. So whenever he's doing the transformation sequence and he's saying, by the power of Grayskull, and then it goes, I have the power, it's just, a lot of people were saying like, oh, he doesn't sound right as a kid, but for me, the voice fit perfectly. Obviously, if you're a Turtles fan, Cam Clark is Leonardo from the original Turtles. But
is that who it was?
I
didn't know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm lucky enough to have a signed thing from him as well. So yeah. So that's who it was.
I never knew that.
And also, in case you aren't aware of this, then, so Gary Chalk, who voiced Man at Arms, was a voice of He-Man in the New Adventures show.
I knew that. I did know that one.
You knew that? Okay.
I knew that one. Even if I didn't, I'm going to say I knew that. Just so I know a little bit.
Just to make you look like a little bit of a fan. That's fine.
I didn't know that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I didn't know that. But,
but for me,
this is why you're the Master's Guru, huh?
Well, I wouldn't say that. It's just like, I did a little bit of brushing up before, but that was something I knew. And even whenever I watched the DVD and saw him, I was like, oh, I know that face, and then obviously with the newer one, we have like a lot of people voicing the characters that we know from different properties, which is great. But yeah, I thought it was a neat touch, like in this show as well. This is the only time that we kind of see the transformation sequence being interrupted. So there's an episode, I think it's Island, where he says, by the power, and he looks down, he sees the puddle, he sees one of the crabs coming around. So he kind of flips back, and I think there's a part with one of the Snake Man, he says, by the power, and then Cringer, I think it's tongue lashing, grabs hold of his tongue and then goes flying, and then he says, you got more battle clad than you realized. And then does this transformation sequence. So I like the fact that they had that, and I hope that's something that they do in this show, that we're not always going to get him transforming, because I think in one of the original ones he does it, but then stuff falls on top of him, and then he just holds up the sword.
Powers out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I like the fact that in here that they did that, and I was just like, oh, he's going to oh no, he's not, so I really enjoyed that. But the voice acting for me, especially from Cam Clark as a young Prince Adam and He-Man, was spot on.
The one thing for me is, like, in preparation for this, one of the documentaries that I've watched a number of times was the Power of Grayskull, the He-Man documentary, the legacy one that's airing on Netflix and was also a Kickstarter, which I believe you actually donated to and got put on the credits for. Congratulations. And with Cam Clark, I was watching the New Adventures part, not the reboot part, and Cam actually sat there and just went straight into it. And I don't think really you appreciated how talented the guy is to go from the one end of the vocal tones to do the young Adam, and going directly into the deeper end and going into the He-Man voice, and then keeping that on and then switching it straight back into Adam again. I mean, that's a true testament of a very, very talented individual.
Oh yeah, I would say so. Like, to have that range to do that, but like, because I think with voice actors, whenever somebody says, "Oh, I could do an impression of this," there's a great. I think I've said this before. There's a great documentary called "I Know That Voice," and if you're into voice acting and things like that, it's great. And I think it's James Arnold Taylor says, yeah, but you can do an impression, but can you act like that for 4 hours a day? Can you act like him whenever he's having an electric shock? Can you act like him whenever you're doing this? So whenever he's voicing Adam and then he's doing the transformation sequence and then goes into He-Man, then I'm sure whenever he's reading the lines and he's going like, that's He-Man, that's that. So he's having to prepare mentally where his voice is meant to be, so like, for me, a lot of the casting was spot on, especially the likes of Merman, Roboto, to name but a few, and even the likes of Randor had that rich tone that you expect from royalty as well.
I mean, I'm just looking at the cast list now, looking at the characters that were being done. And it's funny because even though you got used to the original franchise with John Owen and Alan Oppenheimer and Erica Shima and Lou Shima doing some of the voices, you didn't really notice a difference between this incarnation and the old franchise. It didn't feel out of place. They kept especially Skeletor kept that same sort of principle of what Alan Oppenheimer was trying to portray with the character.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of felt like a continuation or the same show but in a different setting. Do you know what I mean? Between the 80s Filmation and the Mike Young Productions one.
Yeah, it's kind of like whenever the live action Aladdin came out, everyone was going, Will Smith will not be a good genie at all. And then whenever people watch it, was like, he was good. But obviously Robin Williams was the best genie. Everyone will say that. Whereas Brian Dodson, I think it was, did Skeletor and did a great job, but Alan Oppenheimer will forever be Skeletor. But it's the same way whenever we watch the trailer for the Revelation show, I haven't watched it and went like, that voice doesn't fit that character, you know. And I think that's the thing with the internet now, is that people seem to comment on what they hate more than what they enjoy more. And that for me is just, that never sits well with me. So whenever you hear the transformation sequence, it's different, but it's something that once you watch a couple of times, you'll get used to. And it was the same with this, that once you watch a couple of episodes, you still remembered the 80s show, but you had to accept this show as what you're going to watch from here on out. And it's the same with Revelation. You know, we're going to watch 5 episodes and then another 5 episodes at some other stage. And it'd be nice then to watch the 10 episodes all together. But it's just something that, you know, like you have to move with the times and move with the change. And even it's the same with the She-Ra show. It's totally different, the one on Netflix, because it's more aimed for kids than the one that we watched in the 80s, which was also aimed for kids. So you had people our age watching it and going like, oh, that's not for me. And it's like, yeah, because it's more suited for a younger audience. And it's one of those things that I've watched maybe an episode of, but it's something that maybe after Revelation I'll start to watch more of, to try and get in and see if it's for me and stick with it a bit more. But you know, that's the thing, is that things change, and with the transformation sequence, with the music, etc., that's one thing, is that music, I really wish I would bring the music out in vinyl. I love the music in this show so much.
But, I couldn't agree more. I mean,
I think I've went way off tangent from what your original question was, but
no, but that's what we're here to do, isn't it? We're here to celebrate and talk about the 2000 Reboot series of Masters, and that's the conversations we're going to be getting. I mean, the one thing that I loved about the reboot was the fact that they did the first 3 episodes as the origin story.
Yeah.
Which, you know, if you think about the 80s series, there was no origin story, was there? They kind of kicked in and He-Man was already there. You didn't know how he got the power sword. You know, you were introduced to the characters, but they were already established. With this one, and you hit on it earlier on about Caldor, the fact that they actually spent time at the beginning of the episode to showcase Randor and Caldor having the battle over Grayskull, and then the acid going in, the years passed, and then all of a sudden they're back, and this is how E-Man began, was such a well done narrative and a throwback and a homage to the original series that I think you instantly fell in love with the show because of the amount of time that they spent on the story Bible, on keeping the lineage of the mythos similar and just elevating aspects of it that you might not know. And I think the level of respect that the writers, who were, some of them were original series writers like Larry DiTilio and Dean Stefan, excuse me, and the level of respect that they had to the original property and wanting to not poo-poo over it, but kind of enhance it and bring it into that next generation of fans and viewers, and really kind of celebrate it. And that to me is what this show did. It celebrated the legacy of the franchise.
Yeah, I think as well with certain characters, like I said before, who you may not have seen, or, you know, with the likes of Evil Seed was more prevalent in this than the one episode we had in the classic series. But even with the likes of, again, with my interview with Dean Stefan, he said that he never really watched the original show. So whenever fans were saying about the ties that bind, which was basically the story about Tila and how she was very similar to the sorceress whenever she went, she was at some village, and people were saying that's very much like, I can't remember the title of the episode, but I think it was like father, like daughter, I want to say. But with the likes of that episode is very similar. And he said, but I never watched the show. So if that was done, it wasn't done on purpose. It was just done because, oh, here's a good idea. Here's an idea for a certain um, aspect to enhance a certain character. But that's why I love the show as well, because we have the likes of how Too Bad became Too Bad, two bounty hunters just merged together. You know, and the Skeletor saying can't work together, then Too Bad, and then they just merged together. So that was obviously things that I enjoyed seeing. And seeing with the likes of the Power Grayskull cartoon episode, which had the likes of Hordak, Grizzlor, Mantenna in it, and that's the first time that we'd seen characters who were more in the She-Ra show being on the He-Man show as well. And like I say, you know, like with the like you said with Larry DiTillio, did the Monster Within, which was one of my favorite episodes because it had many faces in it. So, and then he did a couple other ones with, I think there was Trust or Price of Deceit, I think he did, which is one that has kind of sort of the throwback with Keldor and Cronus, who was then, that was before he became Trapjaw as well. So there is the likes of Icons of Evil comics, which show the characters like Triclops, Beastman, and especially Trapjaw before they become the characters that you know. So Trapjaw is a full person before he gets his jaw broken, gets his arm, you know, something happens to his arm, and then that's how he becomes who he is. But yeah, it's just rich in development for certain characters, and I think going into season 3, we would find that with the likes of Hordak and things like that. I don't want to spoil too much of the Dean Stefan interview, but if you're interested to find out what happened in season 3, then give that a listen to them, and you'll find that out. So
that will be released following this show. That'll be the next Chronicles, as we said at the top of the show. That'll be the next one that we release. I mean, one of the things that you kind of touched on there is the combination of the property. So the combination of She-Ra and the Princess of Power series from the 80s with this one. So Hordak being part of this cast, this cast of characters. Did that bring something to the show, having a character that was really well fleshed out in the original series in She-Ra, now coming in and having a whole different spin in the Eternia mythos and battling with Skeletor against He-Man?
I think if they had done it wherever the Snake Men weren't part of it, because we had King Hiss, who I don't think was in He-Man or She-Ra. You did have the likes of, say, Ratlor and Cobra Khan in the He-Man show, but you didn't have King Hiss. So I think that whenever they went from Masters of the Universe to then Masters of the Universe versus the Snake Men, and then you had, them as the main threat of it. I think that if they made that I think it was obviously teeing up in season 3 that with King Hiss then, spoiler alert, dying in episode 40, which was unreleased, but they did release it as a mini comic, and they also did release it on the DVD as well. So you see that whenever King Hiss is, I think it's in this part, so the likes of, say, Man at Arms then gets turned into Snake Man, and then he will go to the dark side, so to speak. But King Hiss is kind of dead after Zodak turns his head against him and he eats his own main head. But then I think that if they put into darkness, that they can then recover and then grow more skin and stuff. So I think that he would have been maybe in cahoots with Hordak, but obviously you had Skeletor at the mainstay, and then as the episodes went on, he was in it less and less, which, I understand that he had 3 villains, but it's almost like a Spider-Man 3 where you had Venom as in it, and then you had Sandman. It's just like you only need one, so if you had, it's just I think that's why Skeletor made way, and then King Hiss was more the villain, and then Hordak was going to be in it more probably for season 3, and then those two would have taken the back seat. So I didn't mind it. It was nice to see the darker side of Hordak than, that it wasn't comedic in the Filmation show, but then Skeletor became comedic. I think it was a lot different and a lot darker tone, like straight from the outset in the Power Grayskull, whenever the rock guy, Callus or whatever, says something, and we're like, oh, you're right, but I do hate bad counsel, and then just basically crushes him. Basically just looks around and then he's in a pile of rubble. But then to see the likes of Grizzlor and Mantenna and ones that you knew more from the toy, if you didn't watch She-Ra, was good. But it's just one of those things that whenever they put more characters into it, but because with the likes of, say, Hordak, we didn't get a toy of Hordak, in that line. So that's why I'm saying that in 2003, until you actually seen him physically after Power of Grayskull, that's probably whenever they would have brought those out as toys, I'd imagine. That would have been their plan.
Wow. So much I didn't know about this series. It's really just, this is why we got the Master of the Chronicles. You see what I did there?
Yeah.
Master. Yeah. I'm going to shut up now. So, in total, 39 episodes were released across the 2 seasons. Filmed and recorded in the US and Canada, which was intriguing. So, not just in the US of A this time. The Mike Young Productions, as we said, ran it. Now, it was audio format, and I don't normally go into detail on this, but it was Dolby Digital 5.1. So it had that surround sound capability if you were watching it, which was really quite unique for an animated property at that point, to have that Dolby Digital surround sound. And when you're watching it, you can really hear the stuff that's going on in the background and what they did. Yeah. It's just that attention, that extra attention to detail that they put in, and not just being a flat mono sound or what just comes through normal speakers of the TV, that flat, tinny sort of sound effect.
Even with the likes of some of the screams, the likes of Whiplashes or the Snake Man's theme, scream, almost sounded like the T-Rex noise from Jurassic Park. So hearing that, if you're sitting there and you hear like a big roar, I'm sorry, but that was probably scared the life out of me, just hearing that. But to hear the transformation sequence in Dolby Digital would be quite spine tingling. I would think I would probably have goosebumps, every time you were to hear that, or to hear the intro theme as well. So,
can you imagine what Revelations is going to be like? It's going to be ultra 4K, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos. It's just going to knock your socks off, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah. It's just going to be nice. And the thing is now is that obviously back in the 80s we had little small TVs, and now we've all got big 50-odd inch TVs, and we've got whether you play it on your PlayStation 5 and then you've got the 4K upgrade for Netflix, that's going to make it even crisper. Yeah. That might be something I have to have a look at, just to make the picture quality and sound quality that even bit richer.
We bought a new TV the other week because my daughter broke my arse one, and made sure we got it with 4K Ultra HD, and it's primarily, for Netflix and for He-Man. Right? Kevin Smith appreciates it. So as we said, 39 episodes, 2 years. It ran for just less than 2 years, and that was it. There was no more animated properties released until 2018, when Netflix brought out with DreamWorks She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, which was, as you referenced there, the younger generation. Why did nothing else, in your opinion, happen following the reboot, animated wise? Was it just that they got burnt and that was it? They didn't want to go to the well for a third time? Because the fan support was still there. It was still hugely, hugely popular.
I honestly can't remember if I covered it whenever I talked to the brand manager of Mattel, Scott Naitilch, who was in charge of the He-Man property, and he was the one who, with the Four Horsemen, then brought the classic line to us. So I think maybe they just decided to go down that route, because then they sell the figures. Obviously, they have the lineage of the 35 plus years of He-Man. So whether they just decided, right, let's just do this instead of bringing out another animated show. We did obviously have it in more comic forms, with the likes of, say, He-Man Eternity War, Injustice versus Master Universe, DC versus Master Universe, He-Man and Thundercats, which was an interesting one. And then obviously we've got the new... I did too. And then we've got the new one, the Master Universe Revelation, which will be coming out. I think it's already out now. But yeah, with the likes of those there, I think maybe they just decided, let's just stick with this because we'll make more money off this. Whereas if we apply money into an animated show, we may not make the money. And I think with maybe the Netflix thing, it's different, because maybe they've pitched it to them, and Netflix have went, yep, here's the money to go and make this show. And then they've decided, like, well, we've been paid the money to make this show. Let's make the toys from this. I don't know. I'm not a businessman, but I would just say that that's probably what they're doing, because it's all about the moolah at the end of the day and how much they can make from this property, you know, because as you get on to with James about his Return of Faker cartoon, that was all ready to go, and then he got a cease and desist to do with this, and that's why, you know, the Kickstarter thing happened. But that would have been the next kind of you know, like full episode cartoon that we would have had since then. I know there was a couple of like 5-minute cartoons, like The Curse of Spellstone, which was kind of like a cartoon thing that Alan Oppenheimer reprised his role as Skeletor for. But apart from that, like you said, there wasn't anything. They just decided to go down the route. I'm not American, of different media, you know, with the likes of that, and then bringing out the DVDs and such again. So I think they just decided to hold on to the lineage of the older properties and then go on to figures and comics more so.
How do you think the two Netflix properties are going to differ now? Because obviously you've got the Kevin Smith one coming out, and then you've also got a Netflix owned property coming out, which we don't really know much about at the moment.
Yeah, it's the same way as this movie that they've talked about for years and years, and they had somebody cast as He-Man, and then he left the property, and I think the director then left the property, and I've always said I will never ever believe that a He-Man movie will be made until I see a trailer. I've seen more trailers for this upcoming Revelation show than I have for this new movie that has been proposed since probably, 1989, 1987, whenever the Dolph Lundgren one came out. I don't know what to think of this other one. I think this is maybe going to be more a anime style, which may look similar to the 2002 show. Always basically seen as a poster of the Power Sword, but obviously it's probably going to be a lot different in tone to this one. Whether this is going to be for He-Man what the Princesses of Power was to She-Ra, I just don't know. I'll give it a go and see, but I can't judge anything on a poster, really. It's like people who judge a 2-hour movie based on a 30-second trailer. It's like it doesn't give much away. It's just to entice you, you know. And
it's pretty impossible, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is, but people just still seem to do it, sadly.
So let's.
But yeah, also, I was just going to say, also with the 2002 show, they did bring out one other thing, which was a PlayStation 2 game, which obviously came out. Now, this actually had the original cast, you know, from Cam Clark to Brian Dawson. So, yeah, it's a pretty terrible game, to be brutally honest with you. And they did bring out a Game Boy version of it as well. And also, while we were talking about the figures, you also did in America, though, they brought this out on VHS, but they also brought out The World of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, which was basically just introducing you to the characters. And this is where you hear Cam Clark, you know, saying only 3 others know the secret, and then you see the sorcerers, Man-at-Arms and Orko, and then it shows you the figures on the back there. And just while you have that blowing up, then I do have a couple comics to show you. One which was done by Emiliano Santamaria and Enzo Fontana, and hopefully this will make you jealous that I have this signed. This was by Chris Judge of Stargate fame, who voiced Eatock in this show. I met him at London Film Comic Con a couple of years ago, and he had never seen this before, so this is actually the first one that he must have signed. So I was very, very happy to meet him. So yeah, I just thought I would show that off there too.
All right, stop showing off. Stop showing off. Okay, I mean, I had the PS2 game. What a disaster.
It was.
But it's still He-Man.
On the show now. It's just me on the show now. Andy doesn't want to be here anymore. So I just offended him that much that he decided not to come back.
I forgot you could actually see that. I thought that was just. I forgot in the studio you could see that I was making you full screen, so people could appreciate your collection. Yeah.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot now. If you had to put an estimate, what do you think your collection estimated is worth in value? Because you have got some unique pieces in that piece.
Yeah,
What do you think it's
I
worth?
honestly don't know. I know that some of the graded stuff, like there's one in the middle here and this one here, which are limited to like 500 copies. So they'd be, oh, hold on, I'll show you now. So that's my cue to show you. So I do have this one here, which was from 2004, which is He-Man on Battle Cat, which is obviously from the 2002 show. And this was actually one that a guy in America was doing he was going around comic book stores and he was asking people, is there anything you want? And I said, can you have a look for He-Man stuff? And he got this one here, which is He-Man in
Wow.
his Snake Man outfit. Now I got this graded in my local comic shop, and he said there's not many of these around, and said you could probably ask anywhere for 800 odd quid, something like that for it.
Jeez.
So yeah, so to have something like that, there's like two other ones here, like there's a Faker one and a Skeletor reprint, which I actually found two of in one place, and then we'll have the Randor and Marlena from the show there as well. So I don't know, to be honest, but there's people who have a heck of a lot more stuff than I do, and their collection's worth quite a bit. But I've always been a He-Man fan, and because I don't have the figures or anything, doesn't make me less of a fan. But I enjoy collecting comic books because I'm in a smaller place now, not emotionally but physically, and the comics are a lot easier to collect because you just put them in a box and that's you. So. I'm looking forward to reading the Revelation comic and then getting the variants of that as well. So,
Wow.
yeah, I've got like a box full of them, and there is a link to my old channel, Vintomania, where I show all my He-Man comics. In fact, there's one on Vinto's Vault where I go through that comic book box in depth and basically just show each one. And there's a couple of really nice covers. There's a really nice one by Earl Norham, which is basically he's drawn. Oh no, it's Drew Struzan. That like Indiana Jones posters and things like that. He's done a He-Man cover and it's basically like Dolph Lundgren with the power sword and it's kind of stretched out with him like that. So you can have a look on Vintage Vault and you can see it there. There's 3 videos where I talk about my love of He-Man, and it could have been a lot more than 3 videos, but yeah, I managed to cram it all into that.
We'll put all the links into the narrative, both the YouTube and the audio of this episode. But Chris, again, another fantastic episode. Really enjoy sitting down and talking He-Man with you. Before we go though, we're not going to be talking again on the show until after Revelations is dropped. So I want to get your opinion. What are you thinking about Revelations at the moment, and where are you on all this controversy about the show is about Teela, not He-Man?
But wasn't Teela a main part of the old show? Teela was in a heck of a lot of episodes. Teela had her own stories and things, especially in this. Teela was in the show we've just discussed. Teela was in it. So I think that you're going to find that it's going to be the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, to which Teela is a part of that. We're going to have the Sorcerers. We're going to have Evelyn. We're going to have Marlena. We're going to have more than one female character, So I don't think that it's going to be. I think this is going to be where Teela maybe finds out that Adam is He-Man. I think that's going to be the main. I think that's going to be the cliffhanger where we get on episode 5, and then we're going to have to wait and see what happens then in episode 6 to how she deals with that. But it's almost a case of Teela is as much a part of He-Man as Lois Lane is to Superman, and you wouldn't really have that partnership without it. So to me, it's only a TV show. It's not something that's worth losing my mind over, and it's something that I'll sit down and enjoy. And it'll probably be one that it's like the first time you go to cinema, you'll absorb everything. You'll just be sitting there engrossed, like the first time we watched Endgame Infinity War. And the more you watch it, the more you would discover stuff. So I'm just interested to see what characters, the likes of, say, we have Clamp Champ in this, which we've never seen before. So I'm just interested to see what other characters we have that were in the toy line that were never in the show. And I'm interested to see it, and I just hope that I'm off then so I get to watch it and then come on and talk about it later on. So fingers crossed the gods are smiling, and then I'm able to have that day
That would
off.
be it. If the gods are aligned, that would be fantastic, because a 3-way dance with you, James Eatock, and myself, talking Revelations, talking Filmation, talking He-Man, will be an absolute treat. Chris, as always, it has been a joy having you on the show. Looking forward to the next time when we're back on, and we'll have a chat about what that topic is. Maybe we'll do something non-He-Man after the interview.
I think that might be an idea. You know, we have so much topic to talk about, whether it be the likes of Turtles, Thundercats, Thunderbirds, or Vita's Zen Pet, stuff like that. There's plenty of things, you know, to talk about. So it's not a case of we're going to be stuck for anything anytime soon, or you certainly won't be stuck for anything.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to throw it out to you. You come back to me, let me know what you would like us to talk about next. And that's what we will cover when we get back together again on Retro Chat.
That's fine. No problem at all. Thank you very much for having me on, and for inviting me on again several times. So, yes, hopefully if you're listening or watching this, you're not fed up with listening or watching me. So, yeah, it's always a pleasure to come on, especially talk about He-Man. And I know your interview with James Eatock, regardless if I'll be there or not, will be one that I'll be enjoying listening to. Very much like your WrestleMania 6 coverage you did with Lee, and it was just very surreal to hear you back together again, because there's so many times in my time hop that has come up and said, you know, by in the chat room, you know, like waiting for Ministry of Slam to start and things like that. And it's just nice to hear you two back together. You know, like, and obviously I've talked to you more than I have to Lee, but it's just nice to hear that. And it's almost like, you know, whenever we first started talking on the podcast as well, it's like things never change, and you can just start with a flow and you just go with it, and there's no awkwardness or anything. And that's the beauty about Retro Chat in particular.
It is. And, you know, just going back to that episode, that was actually quite emotional for both of us, I think. It was, we'd met up before we did the show, and that was the first time that Lee and I had seen each other in 11 years. So, let alone spoken.
It's almost eerie, the fact that your topic was WrestleMania 6, and to me, you two getting back and talking about it was almost WWE and Warrior getting back together after so many years apart, you know, like, and then once they got back together, it was like nothing had ever happened.
Yeah, and that's what it was. And it was Lee's coming back on. We've chatted. We're going to do some more shows in the future together. So. You know, we won't be doing weekly shows again. You know, we're both in different places, and that Lee is completely snowed under with the MOS network and what they're doing, and the great things that they're doing over at the MOS network. And it was a pleasure for me. I went on there this past week and did a bit with Lee and Lawrence and the MOS Army, and it was great to be back on that show again. Because again, I never thought I'd be back on there. But we are doing more stuff together, and I think Lee will be coming on to do a special on Knight Rider 2008. So we'll be getting back together again to do that episode, hopefully very soon. So that's coming up as well. Just one other thing to let you know, as well as the J. Anthony Franke interview coming up, one of our specials will be on the California Dreams itself, and I'm going to be joined by a super fan, if you will, of the California Dreams, Ingrid Igo. She will be joining us to share her love of all things CD, especially of J. Anthony Franke. So that will be an interesting one. That will be on in the next few weeks. So much happening here at the Retro Chat, with the amazing announcement from Chris earlier on that Chronicles, the entire history of Chronicles, apart from episode 1, is coming back on the airwaves for the first time in a number of years, right here at Retro Chat. You've already started, but now we've got the entire set, and I cannot wait. Chris, thank you so much for agreeing to release that on this feed for our audience to listen to you again, and to share some of those most iconic interviews with some of the most legendary people within the canon, within the industry, within the franchise that we also so love. I couldn't thank you anymore for letting us do that.
Well, like I said, and the first time we talked was like you were one who gave me the kickstart to start podcasting, so it's only right that I kind of pay back, you know, to the person who gave me the oomph to get going, you know. So what goes around comes around, I always say. And it's just nice that people want to listen to it, and especially with the episode commentary with James Eatock, you know, like there's certain episodes there that you can now find on the He-Man official channel and then watch, and then the audio will kind of be in the background a little bit. Sometimes it's perfectly in sync and sometimes it's not, because it was a nightmare to get started. But yeah, just things like that. Just things like that. It just means a lot to me that people want to listen to it, and means a lot to me that obviously you want to publish it on your channel. So thank you for allowing me to do that as well.
No, it's my absolute pleasure. And that's it for this week edition of Retro Chat, episode 7 in the can. Masters of the Universe, the 200x Reboot series. What did you think of the show? What were your memories? What did you enjoy? What didn't you enjoy about the show? What are you looking forward to in terms of revelations? Is there anything that you're not looking forward to? What questions have you got for James Eatock? All of these things are things that I want to know from you. And you can get in contact with us, studio@retrochat.co.uk, or on the socials at retrochatpodcast on Facebook and Instagram, or retrochatpod on Twitter. Or if you are listening to this on Spotify, click the link in the narrative and leave me a voicemail. Your voicemail will then be put into the show. You can hear yourself. You can put us a question if you want. You can make a comment about the show. We will put it in, as long as it's clean, into future episodes of the show. But for now, I'm Andy Evans. This is Chris Vint. We have the power, and we will see you next time right here on Retro Chat. See you soon. Take care.